We call this Cooking to Thrive in the 21st Century because this series focuses on creating food that promotes health on both an individual and an environmental scale. We're learning master recipes designed to work with whatever you have on hand, with plenty of local and plant-based whole food ingredients. Cooking this way generates vitality and reduces environmental impacts. Flexibility in the kitchen unlocks endless flavor opportunities and makes eating a nutritionally balanced, eco-friendly food fun and intuitive. This series is sponsored by Cornell Cooperative Extension Ulster County and the Ellenville Rural Regional Healthcare Network and Stick to Local Studios. I'm Maria Reidelbach.
Our cooks today, Forrest Lahens and Maria Reidelbach, are the two chefs. My name is Katie. I am an employee at Cornell Cooperative Extension. I'm here to co-host and help things go smoothly, but I will not be cooking tonight. So,
thank you so much, Katie. Hi, everybody. So tonight we're going to be learning the master recipe for creamy soup, or beautiful soup, as I like to call it. And it's got a bunch of different ingredients. But before we start with that, I wanted to just kind of introduce Forrest, who's a member of my extended family.
Hello, everyone.
And it's Black History Month, so this was my idea to celebrate Black History Month. But I really want to say that Black history is American history. So I don't think it should be confined to 1 month, but I will take any excuse to celebrate anything. So
it's always Black History Month for me.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. So Forrest's parents are from Haiti, and I have enjoyed Forrest's cooking over the last couple of years. And he made a really delicious creamy winter squash soup for Thanksgiving dinner. Everybody just died over it. And so I invited him to join me to do a creamy soup. And it's really interesting because you can make both of these. I'm going to make a cauliflower soup, or a broccoli soup, and Forrest is going to do a winter squash soup. And we're basically using the same recipe, the same master recipe that I composed for the cookbook. So the ingredients. So basically you choose one star vegetable usually. This is pretty much a one vegetable soup. And then you'll choose either onions or garlic, or both. If your star vegetable tends to be one of the juicy types of vegetable, like maybe mushrooms or red peppers, something like that, you might want to add a potato or something starchy, like you can use rice, you can even use like torn up bread, anything that is going to give it a little bit of thickness and body. So I'm doing, as I said, broccoli soup, and I am going to add a potato. Broccoli is kind of in the middle of being a juicy vegetable and being a hearty vegetable, but I figured I would just do this for the variation. And okay, so you got your onions and garlic. You'll want some soup stock. We're going to be using two different kinds. We're going to be using chicken stock, and we're going to be using vegetable stock. If you don't have any stock on hand, it's really easy to make a quick stock out of stuff you've got around. You can make an herb tea out of different herbs that you like the flavors of and use that as stock. You can put some dried mushrooms in some hot water, and that'll make a mushroom stock. You can take like bits and pieces of cured meat, or you can take a Parmesan rind and put that in hot water, and that'll make a nice stock. So, or you can just use water, and it'll taste a little bit more meager, but you can adjust for that with seasonings and maybe a little more oil and a little more milky stuff, and herbs. So we got the soup stock. Then we've got something milky, which can be, it can be milk, it can be cream, it can be sour cream, it can be buttermilk, it can be some kind of alternative milk. I'm going to be using oat milk, and Forrest is going to be using coconut milk. And then you have your seasonings, salt and pepper, some herbs. We'll be using those. And as far as the equipment goes, a measuring cup, although you can always guess this isn't a very forgiving recipe. Couple of knives, a big one and a little one, something to stir with. And yeah, that's about it. That's about it for the basics, I think. So Katie, next slide. So the first step is to heat the stock and add the aromatics. So the aromatics would be the onion and garlic. We're going to quickly go through all the steps, and then we'll repeat them as we go through them. So next slide, please. Simmer and add your vegetables, rest of your vegetables. Next slide, please. Add something creamy. Add your salt and pepper, and add like a dollop of oil or butter to give it just a little extra, like next slide, please. And then you serve it. So I think we're going to start now. So the first thing to do is to deal with our aromatics. So Forrest is going to use onion and
Thank you.
and garlic. I'm going to use just garlic. And so what I like to do is get these going, and then while the stock is bubbling along, then take that time to cut up the rest of the vegetables. So this is not the way that Forrest usually makes his squash soup, but he has altered the recipe a little bit so that it conforms more to this master recipe technique. I promised I would say that. And Forrest is being very nice about being flexible and accommodating.
Well, you have to be flexible when you're cooking.
But he's going to tell us when he has alternate ways to do things too, because there's always all different ways to cook things. I mean, I used to think that I had to find exactly the right recipe and then it turns out that there are really all different ways to cook them. And then, you know, a lot of recipes claim that this is the right way to do it. There are a lot of right ways to do it.
Yeah, I don't think
I'm
there's
just
one
gonna-
ski.
Speaking of Black history being American history, one of the things I always wondered when I went into soul food restaurants is how come there's always macaroni and cheese? Because I always thought of that as a Midwestern dish for some reason. And then I found out that it was invented by James Hemings, who was Thomas Jefferson's chef, who was a Black guy. He was related to Sally Hemings too, I think. So they were in France, and Jefferson had some kind of cheese and pasta dish that he really liked, and Hemings came up with macaroni and cheese. And if you look up macaroni and cheese in many sources, it will say that Jefferson invented it, but it was really Hemings. And
Really?
I think that that's why it's a favorite in soul food restaurants to this day and in Black culture. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I've had macaroni and cheese like at holidays, weddings, like wherever you go, there's always mac and cheese. Like,
And I wonder if very many people know that.
I'm sure they know.
And I guess it's kind of like a hidden tradition in a way.
It is a hidden tradition. Like, if you go to someone's house,
I
for
did
a
not know
holiday,
that.
there's no mac and cheese, that's a problem.
That's funny. Okay, so we're going to get these aromatics going. I'm going to put some water in the pots.
And can you, maybe I missed this, but what was it that you chopped there? I was too busy.
I was chopping up garlic, and Forrest chopped up onion and garlic. Now we're going to be blending these later, so really our chopping doesn't make a huge amount of difference because it's all going to go through the blender.
Yeah, that's why I didn't mince my garlic, because it's going to be blended.
I minced mine because I forgot. So there we go, we've got that. And Forrest is going to be using Better Than Bouillon, which is a pretty good instant chicken stock. I always say this, but whenever you buy chicken stock that's in a can or in a box, it's always made from concentrate. So it's better to just get the concentrate, and then you can just make a little at a time, and you don't have leftovers to deal with, and it's actually cheaper. You can just keep it in your fridge.
Sure. And you can make your own whenever you have chicken.
Yes, of course. You can make your own. And then I'm using a vegetable stock that I made from a Cook's Illustrated recipe that's really cool, because a lot of vegetable stock recipes call for like boiling a whole lot of vegetables and then throwing them away. This recipe uses the whole vegetable. So you're not using a whole lot of vegetables to make this. There's soy sauce in it and some salt, and you keep it in the freezer, and it takes a tablespoon per cup. So this only takes a teaspoon. So this takes more, but it makes a really nice vegetable broth. It's got celery root in it and tomato paste and a few other ingredients that I'm not remembering at the moment. But if anybody wants the recipe, I'll post it. Which pot do you want first?
I'll use this one.
So we're getting our stock going. I'm going to put my garlic in. Katie, did anybody post their favorite creamy soups?
Only one person said this doesn't sound like a creamy soup, but pickle soup.
Oh God, we had that the other day for the first time, and it is a creamy soup.
Yeah. Well,
So,
it actually sounds
so
delicious if I think about it.
it's so good. It has dill in it and sour cream. We looked up the recipe, and it totally follows this creamy soup formula. It's really amazing, and I want to make it because it was delicious. It was like a little tart, and it had a lot of dill in it, and it had like pickle shreds in it, so it wasn't completely pureed. It was
Oh,
great.
interesting.
What's the other?
And someone also just put in the chat that they want the recipe for the vegetable stock.
Okay, I'll post that on the turningthetablescookbook.com website tomorrow. Okay, so I'm going to take this broccoli now, and I've washed it, and it's got a lot of nice flowerets, and then it's got a lot of stem. One thing that's good to know is that these leaves are edible and delicious. And if you peel the stem, the inside of the stem is almost the best part, in my opinion. Do you ever eat broccoli stem?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's good,
It's
right?
yummy.
Yeah. So
Chop up my calabaza
I'm going to get to work
squash.
on this. And are you putting your aromatics in with your stock?
True.
So I'm going to peel these. The skin is a bit tough. So I'm going to save all these peels for compost.
This is calabaza squash, right?
That is a kabocha.
Kombucha.
Yeah, it's a Japanese type of squash. Oh, I also wanted to show, I have a few other kinds of squash here. These are all winter squash. This is a cheese pumpkin. This is a acorn squash. This is a tiny butternut squash, and I think it's got a different name because it's tiny. And then this is an orange kabocha squash. Kabocha squashes are very, have flowery texture, like fluffy texture, and very thin skin. And in Japan, they leave this beautiful green skin on because it contrasts so nicely with this color. And they like bevel the edges really nicely. It looks beautiful in their nabe pots.
Mm.
Yeah.
I need a tablespoon to scoop this out.
And there is another question, which is, how do you decide whether to use onions or garlic or both if you aren't using a recipe?
How to choose?
That's a good question.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you need to imagine in your mind's mouth what would taste good. And one of the ways to think about it is flavor groups. You know, it's like some things kind of taste better together than other things. As far as onions and garlic go, I think though, I don't think you can go wrong with either one. What would you say, Forrest?
You can't go wrong. Onions, garlic, they're like the staples of soup. You could use both, you could use one, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, my mother has made this with all different types of squash.
So tell me about the traditional New Year squash soup.
Soup jumu.
Soup jumu, yes.
Yeah. It's also, in my house, we also call it soup jaune, which is like yellow soup.
Uh-huh.
And we have it every year, January 1st, because that's the Haitian independence in 1804. And I seriously do not think there's a Haitian person on the planet that doesn't have that soup on January 1st.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's got, Haitian cooking has French influence, is that right?
French influence and African influence.
And African. And were there indigenous people in Haiti?
Yeah, the Taino Indians,
Uh-huh.
Taino.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they were there before us, before we got there for the slave trade, and they all got wiped out through disease.
They
and
all got wiped out.
all of them,
Wow.
all of them. So I'm boiling this with the skin on because it's easier to peel when it's boiled.
Actually, that was one of my questions, was if you have any tips, because sometimes cutting into a whole winter squash it's hard and it feels kind of dangerous. So if you have any tips for making that easier and safer.
I have a tip for that, actually.
You do?
Yeah, you put the squash in a 500-degree oven for about 5 minutes, and the skin gets really tender. And then you pull it out. I mean, the problem with that tip is that you have to heat your oven up to 500 degrees, which is, you know, a bit of a do.
Yeah, I've also roasted squash before I put it in it. It just adds another profile to the soup.
Yeah, you could do that with the broccoli too, or any vegetable. If you roast them and you start adding those browned surfaces, it makes more complex flavors. So I'm just kind of roughly cutting this up. Okay, so Katie, you can go to back to the second slide, the second step. We're moving into that now. So we want about 2 pounds of vegetables. I'm not going to bother weighing this. I'm just going to toss it all in because it's what I have. So we heated the stock, we added the aromatics, and now we're going to add the vegetables and simmer. So I'm putting the broccoli in here. Oops. Uh-oh.
Is there broccoli in there?
Runaway broccoli, yeah. Sorry.
It's all right.
And I have my potato, I'm gonna wash that and cut it up and put it in. Pretty clean already. I'm cutting it up small so it cooks quickly. And it goes. Always better to cook with your lids on if possible because it saves energy and you know, things will come back up to temperature faster. Okay.
And I have another question, which is,
Yeah.
What do you make with cheese pumpkin and where do you buy it?
So you can get cheese pumpkin at local farm stands in the fall, and generally it's used for like pumpkin pie, but it can be used for anything that you use winter squash for. If you're going to make pumpkin pie, you don't actually want to use like a Halloween pumpkin to make it. You want to use a winter squash or some kind of a cooking pumpkin because, you know, jack-o'-lantern pumpkins are made to be big and easy to carve. Yeah, so you can just use it the way you'd use another winter squash.
Huh?
Forrest has some seasonings here that some spices that
Is he gonna
he's
start
gonna put in.
Yeah, these are extra spices that I'm putting in for extra flavor. We have bay leaves in here. We have star anise, and we have.
What else do you have in there? Cloves?
Cloves. And it's just to add another flavor. The reason why I'm putting it in here is because I'm gonna blend
What
the
does that have to
soup,
do with
and
the
I don't
chicken?
want to fish all this stuff
Me have
out.
to eat before bingo.
So hold on here, let me fix this for you.
Thank you.
Also, I wanted to point out that Forrest just took these seeds out of the squash. And this is a really great twofer that you get with winter squash. You get these seeds that, when they're toasted, are super delicious. I wouldn't just say regular delicious, would you?
They're really good.
Yeah.
I used to throw these out all the time, and now I know you could roast them. You throw some salt, pepper, paprika on them, and it's a healthy snack. Nuts are always good for you. It's a healthy fat.
Yeah, nuts and seeds. And then, of course, you get the shell here, which is like really good fiber, I'll bet.
Yes.
Just a guess. Katie, would you say that?
Just gonna say that, yeah, there's lots of fiber. I love talking about fiber. Ask me any fiber questions.
I want to get more moral fiber. Just a little joke, a little fiber joke. You've probably heard it a million times.
No, that's a new one.
Sometimes these seeds are really big, and then they'll be too tough to eat.
Do you want me to get a bowl of water to soak these? Or no?
We're just kind of doing it while we're standing here, actually. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question, which is how do you know how long to cook the soup?
So we're just going to let it cook until the vegetables are tender.
You could always check it just by, like, for the squash, you want it soft, so you could just stick a knife in it, and if it goes in nice and easy, that's when you know it's ready.
So Forrest, what kind of flavors did the food have that your mom made and dad made?
It was usually, well, my dad didn't really cook when I was growing up. Like, I grew up with my grandmother, and she pretty much cooked every day, and my mom cooked on the weekend. And we always had rice, we always had beans, we always had plantains, and whatever meat. You know, like plantains were served with every dish.
What kind? Is it the green kind or the red kind?
We had the green ones, which I didn't like growing up, and the yellow ones, the sweet ones.
Mm-hmm.
And you could boil it, you could fry it, and it was literally with every meal. Like, I remember, like, we had it every day.
Kind of like potatoes? They're starchy, right?
They're starchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, my grandmother used to send me down to the corner store to, like, buy plantains, and she always said I picked the best ones.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's great. Could you make a plantain soup? Did you ever use them in soup?
Some interesting you asked that, because some people do put plantains in the soup jumeau.
Mm-hmm.
My parents, my mom, my granny, we didn't do that, but I have had soup where they put it in there, and it sweetens it.
Mm-hmm.
Sweetens the soup.
So Haitians everywhere have soup jumeau on New Year's Day.
Yes.
But they make it different ways.
Everybody makes it their own special way. Like, everybody adds something. Like, I don't think I've ever had soup jumeau that tastes like my mother's or my grandmother's. And of course, that's my favorite. And, you know, you could add meat to it, you could add chicken to it. And since I'm 80% vegetarian, I turned mine like just vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but if I have to add a meat, it's usually going to be chicken. I don't make mine with beef.
And so why are you 80% vegetarian, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't mind, because it's just a healthy choice. Like, I think with what's going on with the planet and everything, I think we should all try to eat less meat because of the emissions and the waste. And I feel like it's good for the planet and it's good for your body.
I love that. That's what my cookbook's about too.
I know. That's why I'm 80% vegetarian.
Yeah.
And I do
it's
have
hard. Go ahead, Katie.
Oh, sorry. The going back to the soup. So someone asked, how did the soup become traditional? And then the other question is, what are the variations on it? And I think you kind of answered that already. But how did it become traditional?
How did it become a tradition?
How did it become a tradition? Well, during the Haitian Revolution that happened in 1804, this soup was only made for the masters of the land. Like the slaves were not allowed to eat it. So when we, during the revolution, when we kicked out France's forces, this soup is like one of the first meals everybody had because no one was allowed to eat it. So some people call it freedom soup. I've never heard it called that, but in the little research that I did, they're calling it freedom soup. It wasn't called that in my house. And
So what does jumu mean?
Jumu is squash.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think that's why it became a tradition, because everybody after the revolution, everybody had the soup, and that's what happened. January 1st, every Haitian household on the planet, as far as I'm concerned, is making this soup. And that's why it's important.
So I'm giving my soup a stir now.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's getting there. Things are not cooked yet, though. They're still kind of hard.
Yeah,
Smells good.
And I'm going to taste what my broth is looking like.
Oh, can I have a taste too?
Sure.
And do you put salt in the beginning? I didn't notice that. Or do you put it at the end, or like multiple points during?
We're gonna put it in at the end. That I can already taste the spices there.
Yeah, I can taste the stuff.
Yeah, it's so interesting because they aren't spices I would use in soup.
Really?
Oh no, not at all. But they really taste good. And so star anise is like an Asian flavor. I usually think of it as an Asian flavor, and clove I usually think of as a sweet flavor.
We use it in rice. We use it in a lot of dishes.
No kidding.
Yeah. It's just ups the flavor profile of everything.
It's delicious. My soup is going to be relatively tame, but good. It'll be good.
Yeah, and I usually don't make my soup as spicy. Like most Haitians will put like a Scott bonnet pepper in here,
Oh yeah.
which also adds another level of flavor. I don't do that because if the Scotch bonnet bursts in there, the soup is just going to be way too spicy.
Oh, you put it in it, the whole thing.
They put the whole thing, but they take it out at the end. But they make sure they don't stir the pot too hard because
Ooh.
it's only for the flavor.
Because jumu is not a creamy soup. It has whole chunks of vegetables in it.
Lots of vegetables: celery, carrots, potatoes, other vegetables I don't know how to pronounce.
Well, we have some of that habanero sauce that your friend made in the fridge that we could add.
That's true. I would add that at the end, or I would leave that as a
Table condiment.
Yeah.
So herbs can add so much flavor to your cooking. And one of the really great things about herbs that I always like to share is that they have very strong flavors, and their flavors are a tip-off that they have a lot of phytonutrients. They have a lot of vitamins. They're sort of like the vitamins of the plant world. So I always load my dishes up with as much herbs as I can. And it's really, even parsley, I know people think of parsley as just a decoration, but it actually really has a nice flavor. So I have parsley to sprinkle on my broccoli soup, and Forrest is chopping up some cilantro for his soup.
Yeah.
Some people think cilantro tastes soapy, and I have read that there actually was a study that if you introduce small amounts of cilantro into your food, into food that you like, if you do that 10 times, you will not have your aversion to cilantro anymore.
Is that so? Do you know
I mean,
anyone
I've
who's-
always liked cilantro, so
Yeah, I
you
don't
know,
have.
and I don't know
have
anybody
issues
who's
with
done this.
cilantro.
but it sounds right to me because, you know, sometimes it takes a while to acquire a taste for food.
That's true. That's very true.
So I'm chopping up my parsley. This is not going to be blended.
I won't be blending mine either because this is going to be a nice little contrast with the color of the soup. Is that you or is that me?
I think you've got yours up on high, yeah, so you need to get that. You can lower that. Okay, so I've got that. And I'm going to check mine again, see how it's doing. Oh, they're getting there. It's starting to soften. I'm going to just pull out a potato and just check it out here. Still a little hard. I think it's going to take a few more minutes. So recently I made some amazing red pepper cream soup when I had a couple of peppers that were kind of languishing in the vegetable drawer. And I made cream of celery soup, and I made some cream of mushroom soup. I mean, it's really fun. You can just about use any vegetable you can think of. And, you know, you can jazz it up a little bit. You could mix two vegetables if you want to, but you want to make sure that the colors are compatible. Like you wouldn't want to mix a green and an orange vegetable because then it's going to turn mud color. You know, once you try this out in a simple form, then I think is a good time to start experimenting with other possibilities. It's nice to have like little bowls that you can put your prepped food into. So I'm gonna.
And there's another question about the soup jamu. I am probably not pronouncing that right. What else? What are typical things do you serve with it? What other things have you seen people put in it? And then a question for Maria, what kind of creamy things would you put in a cream soup? Like yogurt, and what about if you were vegan?
Well, the soup that I'm making is going to be vegan, and I'm using oat milk, and I think I'm going to put some sprinkles of like vegan cheese in. I don't eat a lot of like processed vegan food, but I can't do dairy myself because of lactose intolerance. And so I've been experimenting a little bit with vegan cheese because it's gotten a lot better than it used to be. And I really miss cheese. Yeah, I'm going to be using oat milk and then a little sprinkle of the vegan cheese. Back to soup jamu.
As far as the vegetables that go into the soup, you could add potatoes. There's been green peppers added. There's been celery. There's carrots, and there's also pasta that goes into the soup jamu. But for me, I'm only making the base. But soup jamu has a lot of things in it, and people usually put beef in it. I don't do that. You can make it with chicken. But as far as the vegetables are concerned, potatoes, carrots, celery, and sometimes even yams. People put cabbage in it. Like it's very, very complex. And most people make it the day before, like on the 31st, because you don't want to throw everything in the pot and things become like mushy. So you have to put the vegetables in stages, and you have to put the pasta. The pasta goes last, obviously, you know, but it's a long process, a very long process.
I remember when you made it for us. Can I help you peel those?
Yes, you can.
And I do have another question for anyone who wants to look this up. How do you spell jamu?
Oh, wasn't expecting that one. Joumou. I hope I'm right.
I'm going to look it up. I will fact check you and let you know.
Well, these have gotten really nice and easy to peel.
Yeah, Google knows. It must have heard me talking, and the minute I typed in soup, that popped up. So yeah, JOUMOU. If anyone wants to Google.
Thank you, Google.
Give me another chunk.
Oh, very nice.
Thank you. Here, I'll get that bowl back here.
We'll find out Friday afternoon.
Did anybody here's parents make a cream soup that they especially remember? I remember Campbell's cream of mushroom soup, actually. I love that.
Say that's all my family made. The can of Campbell's cream of
It was good. But homemade is better.
Tomato soup, cream of tomato soup.
Oh, yeah, right? I made some of that recently, too. And I added a couple of dried tomatoes, which was awesome. Oh, and I used some tomatoes that I roasted last summer and froze. And that was really good.
Oh, cream of celery and cream of spinach also.
Ooh, cream of spinach, yeah.
Spinach, yeah.
Cream of celery. Was it celery like the stalks or the celery root?
I made it with celery stalks. And then I saved the leaves and I chopped the leaves up finely and used them as a herb sprinkle. It's another one of those two-for kind of vegetables. Celery leaves are really delicious.
Oh, stalks and roots, both. And then there's another comment. Peter's Market used to make an amazing cream of asparagus soup.
Oh, yeah. Cream of asparagus is good, and it's really good with lemon as a flavoring. There you go. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, we're homing in here. Let's see how my potatoes are doing over here. So this is, as you can see, this is a really quick soup to make. Smelling really nice.
Oh, I'm just going to add that.
Room in the kitchen. That's done. Okay, I'm going to clean this up. I think I'm ready for the blender. So a stick blender is a wonderful thing. It's a really great invention, and they aren't too expensive, and they're really nice to have around. They won't make things as creamy as a stand blender, but you don't have that awkward, pitcher to clean with all the little spots that are really hard to get at. Okay, so I am going to, can I have that little pot over here, please? Thank you. So you need to be careful when you're blending hot stuff because it can really gush up and you don't want to get it in your eye. So I'm just got the blender in there. It's getting all nice and green. Making all kinds of gloopy noises. So if you tilt it to the side, then you can kind of get like a vortex going and it stirs itself. Okay, look at that, nice and smooth.
It's a beautiful green.
It is, isn't it? Okay, I'm gonna rinse this off for you.
And question about how much water you used. Was it 4 cups?
It was 4 cups. So I've got this here, and so I'm going to pour in some of my creamy stuff. The recipe calls for 2 cups of something milky. I'm not gonna bother to measure this. I'm just gonna kind of pour in what I think is 2 cups. One of the things I like to do is like guess. And then if I can measure afterward, then it helps me learn how to estimate better on the fly, and it'll really save cooking time. And there goes Forrest.
Or should I move it over?
Yeah, move it over here. I think we need to. I'm putting some toast in because I'm gonna have croutons on mine. So while Forrest is doing that, I'm gonna add salt and pepper. I'm going to give mine a dollop of olive oil, just to add a little layer of richness. And I'll take that back.
You want me to rinse it?
Nah, it's okay.
This is why it was called soup jaune in my house, yellow soup, because there's the color.
Okay, there we go.
Be adding anywhere between half a cup to 1 cup of coconut milk. Depends what kind of flavor you're going for.
Coconut milk is really rich, right?
Very rich.
So the recipe calls for 2 cups of something milky, but Forrest is going easy on this.
Yes.
So, master recipes are basically formulas, and you can shape them any way that you want to shape them. The proportions are important if you're making a baked good, but if you're making something like soup, they're less important, and you can really, you can really play with those proportions.
And if you like your soup spicy, you could always add, the Scotch bonnet. You can add red pepper flakes. It's totally up to you.
I'm gonna add some more salt. How's that going? Can I taste?
Delicious. Yes, you may. Need a little salt, a little pepper, and I'm good to go.
Oh, that is so good. That's sweet. Did you put sugar in that?
Not at all.
It's so sweet. Wowie, that's great. And
Can I taste
the
your-
spices are such a surprise. Oh, I didn't put the cheese in yet. When can I put the cheese in? So I've got this shredded cheddar styles. So you do have to watch it with some of this vegan stuff because it can almost approach junk food in the amount of fats it's got and that kind of thing. So just be aware. Okay, here we go. And here we have some pumpkin seeds because
Should I put mine in the bowl?
yeah. Why don't you put some in a bowl? Here's one. Well, where's the?
Thank you.
I'm going to warm mine up a little more to make these cheese-like shreds melt.
Okay, so there's a question and a comment. So never realized that you can make broccoli soup so easily. Looks delicious. Also, what is in the mason jar?
What is in the mason jar? Oh, yeah. So that is a little bit of sunflower oil that Forrest was thinking about using as a little drizzle on top of his soup.
Which I am.
That little bit of shredded cheese-like stuff actually did add a nice quality to this. There we go. And this is done. Done. So I'm going to get my toast out, and I'm going to take a garlic clove, and I'm going to cut it in half with my knife, and I'm just going to rub it on this toast now that it's nice and firm. And that'll make it sort of like garlic crouton. This is like a down and dirty, very quick cheater crouton. Oh, Forrest, that's so beautiful. Oh, what did you drizzle on there that's white? Is that the coconut milk?
That is the coconut milk.
Oh, that's really great.
And
I
there
hope you guys
have
can
it.
all see this. I'm gonna do mine now. Oh, it's almost time too. Okay, let me get a move on here. You can also tear your croutons. Depends on what kind of mood you're in. Might be in a cutting precisely kind of mood or a tearing mood. Okay. So here we go. There's the cream of broccoli soup. And then I'm going to sprinkle some of the parsley on top and toss in a few croutons.
And someone just asked what kind of squash you used. It was a kabocha squash?
It was a kabocha squash, yeah.
But you could use butternut. My mother has used frozen squash, but don't use spaghetti squash
Or zucchini.
or zucchini.
All right, I'm gonna take a taste of mine with all the trimmings.
Good.
No, it's really good. Can I have a taste of yours?
Mm.
Mmm.
It looks
Delicious.
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 And
Yeah,
another
really
one more
good.
question. Is low-fat coconut milk okay to use?
You know, low-fat coconut milk, I have read, is just coconut milk with water added. So you can make your coconut milk low-fat if you just add half as much to your soup.
There you have it.
There we go. Cream soup. So I want all you guys to go make some cream soup this week and send us your photos. It's at turningthetablescookbook.com. Is that recipe. There's a whole bunch more master recipes for things like a hearty vegetable soup or a grain harvest bowl. Next month, we're going to be doing fruit and nut bread. So it's not fruitcake. Don't be afraid. It's more like, you know, cherries and almonds or walnuts and apricots. So it's any fruit and nut combo that your taste buds desire. And it's a really easy recipe that uses only one bowl.
Do you have a contact information if anybody has more questions to ask about the soup?
Yes, if you go to the Cornell website where you signed up for this class, you can sign up for the next class, and my email address is there, mrr233@cornell.edu, and I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you, Katie. Thanks so much for helping with this class.
Thank you, Katie. This has been fun and wonderful. Thank you, Maria. It was great.
Yay. Bye. I guess
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. It's very good.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy the
Have a
soup.
good time. Yeah, eat some cream soup. It's going to be cold over the next couple days.
Thanks,
So-
Maria.
Get your soup on.
Okay.
Bye,
There is-
everybody.
Bye.